Our friends are under attack. Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro. We have Benny Johnson also got hit. Seth Dillon, as you can see here, also Zero Hedge. The list goes on and on, all getting an onslaught from the New York Times. Now, this is what Tucker Carlson got. Absolutely amazing message and response. Wait until we read this one. And there's a no word in here because Tucker's the man. He said here, he got this message from Nico. And apparently Tucker knows this guy or has him in his phone. But he says, "Good day, Mr. Carlson." This is a New York Times reporter. "I hope you're well. I'm Nico Grant, a reporter at the New York Times." And Dan Bongino apparently is also getting hit with this. I think Tim Pool got hit with this. Bongino just posted about this morning. He said, this is who this guy is. This guy has protected his tweets now. He says, this is the media communist who's now trying to censor everybody out there in the conservative wing. Says from the NY Times. His name is Nico Grant. He's a reporter for the New York Times. He covers Google, YouTube, and Alphabet, formerly business. His posts are now protected because he's attacking all these conservative commentators. And this is who he is. All right. Dan Bongino apparently is also being hit on this. But here's what happened with Tucker. "Hi, Mr. Carlson. I hope you're well. I'm Nico Grant, a reporter at the New York Times. Now, I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment for an upcoming article that takes a look at how political commentators have discussed the upcoming election on YouTube. We rely on an analysis conducted by researchers at Media Matters for America." What? Media Matters is a Democratic-funded hack organization that is created solely to go smear the right. So the New York Times is taking one of their research garbage papers and then now writing a report about it because the New York Times is so terrible. He says to Tucker, "Could you kindly provide us with a comment or decline to comment by the end of tomorrow? Thanks so much for your time. Here are points we plan to include, Tucker. Media Matters identified 286 YouTube videos from you, Tucker." Oh, gosh. If they looked at our channel, it's like 1,000. Are you kidding me? "And August that contained election misinformation, according to their terms," right? I don't even know what their standards are, but they, of course, anything, right, is going to check that box, including narratives that have been debunked or are not supported with credible evidence. See, that's the thing. They don't think it's credible. We do. "Researchers identified videos posted by you in those 4 months that contain election misinformation. We feature a clip of you saying, quote, 'All the sadness we've seen after the clearly stolen election. All these bad things happen, but people I know love each other more.' And so, Tucker, how dare you say something like that in America? What do you think you have the right to say something like that? I also have a few questions. Are you a member of the YouTube Partner Program? That's the monetization program. So that's how we get paid from YouTube if you're a content creator on YouTube. And just to be clear about this, after the last election, your boy got demonetized for 9 months after January 6th. They threw us out of that program. Right as we crossed 100,000 subscribers, we crossed 100,000 subscribers. We were not even monetized. Didn't even get our silver plaque. Thanks, YouTube. But we don't even want it now. Thanks. So are you a member of the partner program? Because they want to throw them out. Now, Tucker Carlson, obviously a little bit bigger channel than we've got here. So that is a sizable chunk of money, probably millions of dollars if he gets thrown out of the program. Definitely millions of dollars. Probably many millions of dollars if they throw him out. If so, how frequently does YouTube demonetize your videos? And you would never answer that question to these hacks. And has YouTube sent you messages, emails, or notices in the last year that your content contains misinformation? Thank you for your time. Thanks for your time. So what they're going to do is write about this and then pressure YouTube to demonetize Tucker, to kick him out of the program, because they've identified election misinformation and they're asking, is YouTube identifying election misinformation? Then they're going to go to YouTube's policies and say, your policies say this. And so Tucker's violating your policies, even though he's not. And they'll say our credible evidence should debunk this and so on. And so it's election season. And so they're putting pressure on him. So then Tucker, he says, thanks for your time. So then Tucker Carlson says, oh, hi, hello, Nico. So the New York Times, here's Tucker. So the New York Times is working with a left-wing hate group to silence critics of the Democratic Party. Please ask yourself why you're participating in it. This is why you got into journalism? It's shameful. I hope you're filled with guilt and self-loathing for sending me a text like this. Please quote me. Period. Tucker Carlson. Nico says, oh, thank you for your prompt response. Would you like to address any of the points or questions above? Tucker Carlson says, would I like to participate in your attempt to censor me? No, thanks. But I do hope you'll quote what I wrote above and also note that I told you to F off, which I am now doing. Thanks. And he said the full word in there, which is just perfect. So that's Tucker Carlson's response. I do hope you'll quote what I wrote above and also note that I told you to F off, which I am now doing. Thanks. Anyways, Tucker is now back to fly fishing, having a great time as the media's melting down. All right, so Tucker got hit. Now, guess who else got hit? Ben Shapiro sent this to Ben. They said, if you were wondering what the legacy media would plan for its October surprise, wonder no longer. It's here. Today, I received the following text from a reporter at the New York Times. Good day, Mr. Shapiro. I hope you're well. I'm Nico. I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment for an upcoming article. Same thing. We rely on the corrupt media matters. Could you provide this? We've identified 286 YouTube videos. Oh, okay. So it must be, it's only 286 like in total across all the channels. That's interesting. We've covered like 286 like litigation videos on our channel that we've said were ridiculous. So I'm sure they would not be happy with those videos. It's amazing. Apparently we didn't end up on this list, which we will at some point, just a matter of time. Researchers identified videos posted by you in 4 months that contain election information. Ben Shapiro said this true statement, said your party rigged many of the voting rules in advance of the election in order to ensure extraordinary number of mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting. That's a true statement. What is wrong with that? They absolutely did that. Same 3 questions to Ben. And so he responded. He says, what are they doing? Well, it's obvious. They're using research from Media Matters, which is a hack org, to try to destroy conservative media, to pressure YouTube to demonetize and to penalize any of these people 1 week from the election. And they're just going after everybody. Media Matters. David Brock is gathering donors to beat Trump. YouTube and right-wing creators are spreading anti-trans vitriol and so on. Says that's the entire game. Run an article in America's, quote, most trusted newspaper that declares pretty much every conservative a purveyor of misinfo, and then strong arm YouTube into taking action against conservatives. It's not about election misinformation, obviously, says Ben. It's pointing out that they rigged the voting rules. Joe Biden is clearly the president right now, but you're allowed to say you don't think Joe Biden won the presidency. So Ben's getting hit, and he's explaining how they're getting hit with this from the New York Times. But it's just a Democratic operation. Others have been hit here. That was Tucker. We saw Seth Dillon and the Babylon Bee also been included in this for their election misinformation jokes. You shared a video, said official Gavin Newsom election ad that was not, in fact, an official election ad. Are you aware? Oh, I wonder if this is a joke. I think this is probably a joke. Okay, so it's probably a joke. All right, so he's saying, in your view, is it funny when voters are misinformed? Is democracy a joke to you? And lastly, how do you sleep at night? It's a joke. Okay, good. I'm glad I caught that. So they didn't get hit. They're making a joke. They're mocking it. But Benny Johnson did get hit. Benny Johnson did get hit. Okay, so he's here. And so he got one too. Now, I hope you're well. I'm Nico Grant, a reporter. Same thing. He's caught up in the 286 videos. Said that Trump's legal problems are a result of election interference. Johnson argued that without sufficient evidence, the Democrats have not closed the border. He's upset with Mike Johnson coming on his show. Media Matters research says that your guest falsely claimed that 2020 was rigged and Democrats cheated by nominating Harris. So he got hit. Zero Hedge also got it. It's not just New York Times and Media Matters. Okay, NewsGuard has also been mobilized. The entire censorship industrial complex is in full-blown meltdown. Zero Hedge is another good site. Says NewsGuard is in the process of updating its review of Zero Hedge. You may recall from our previous outreach that our company that rates news, our rating process is here. We have some questions. Now, continues not to meet the criteria for not repeatedly publishing egregiously misleading content. And so NewsGuard is now from the managing editor in the UK, which apparently it's like a censorship operation over there anyways. So he's been hit, and the Babylon Bee is making fun of it all. And they almost got me on that one. But a very funny post from them. And what did I do with that one? There it is. And so they're also asking, how do you sleep at night? Please reply promptly so we can coordinate with YouTube to censor you and other notable critics of the Democrats before the election. Funny. Very funny. I don't know if I can't believe that's real, but it's pretty funny. So now, all that being said, all right, our hack media is trying to get out there and silence conservatives. Meanwhile, the Washington Post is not going to be endorsing a Democrat this year. They've done it for the last however many cycles, as long as I can remember. But now they're not going to be doing it. And the Democrats are freaked out. They like their news spoon-fed to them. And so if it's not going to be spoon-fed to them in a little Gerber baby bottle, here you go, take it. Yeah, we'll have the airplane, just like Joe Biden. Put it in there. Yeah. Then they cancel and throw hissy fits. And I'm excited about the change at the Washington Post. That's good news. Maybe once they get some conservatives over there, maybe I'll subscribe. But more than 200,000 subscribers have thrown a hissy fit on the Democratic Party and have canceled their subscriptions because Bezos is blocking an endorsement of Harris. Or he's just saying, how about we be neutral now because we're no longer seen as credible. Almost 8% of the people have bailed. Good riddance. The paper will be better off for it. And Bezos wrote this article. And we don't hear from him a whole lot, but he did. Why are they not going to be endorsing Kamala? Here's what he says. From Bezos at the Washington Post, he says, in the annual public surveys about trust and reputation, journalists and the media have regularly fallen near the very bottom, often just above Congress. Congress is at the worst level. Journalists just barely above that. But this year, journalists, and Bezos says we here, right? He includes himself in that, have managed to fall even below Congress. The media is worse than even Congress. Wow. Our profession is now the least trusted of all. Something we're doing is clearly not working. Let me give you an analogy. Voting machines must meet two requirements. They must count the vote accurately, and people must believe they count the vote accurately. The second requirement is distinct from and just as important as the first. Now, this is called credibility, right? This is called legitimacy. You can say whatever you want, but if people don't believe that you're legitimate, you have very little power because your power comes from the legitimacy. You can tell us the voting machines were amazing all day in the world or the election was incredible, but we know that you're not legitimate people. You don't have credibility. You don't have the power of legitimacy and truth behind you. So say whatever you want. The second requirement is distinct. Now, likewise with newspapers, we must be accurate and we must be believed to be accurate. It's a bitter pill to swallow, says Bezos, but we are failing on the second requirement. Most people believe the media is biased because it is. And anyone who doesn't see this is paying scant attention to reality. And those who fight reality lose. Reality is an undefeated champion. It would be easy to blame others for our long and continuing fall in credibility and therefore decline in impact, but a victim mentality will not help. Complaining is not a strategy. We must work harder to control what we can control and increase our credibility. Presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. No undecided voters in Pennsylvania are going to say, I'm going with newspaper A's endorsement. None. I actually disagree with that. I think that some people would still do that. There are people who just... It's not none. It's probably small, but it's not none. What presidential endorsements actually do is create a perception of bias. That is true, too. A perception of non-independence. Ending them is a principled decision, and it's the right one. Eugene Meyer, the publisher of the Washington Post from 1933 to 1946, thought the same, and he was right. By itself, declining to endorse presidential candidates is not enough to move us very far up the trust scale, but it is a meaningful step in the right direction. I wish we had made the change earlier than we did. In a moment further from the election and the emotions around it, that was inadequate planning and not some intentional strategy. Yeah. Jeff Bezos is a master planner. This is what he does. He thinks in decades and he's very good at it. He's a very smart guy. They were just waiting to see which way the wind would blow and they've done it. Now, I would also like to be clear that there was no quid pro quo of any kind here. Some people saying that Trump bought him off or something. Neither campaign nor candidate was consulted or informed at any level. It was made entirely internally. Dave Limp, the CEO of one of my companies, the space rocket company called Blue Origin, met with Trump on the day of our announcement. Bezos said, I sighed. You met with Trump? Because I knew it would provide ammunition for those who are trying to frame this as anything other than a principled decision. But the fact is, I didn't know about the meeting beforehand. Even Limp didn't know about the meeting with Trump. The meeting was scheduled quickly that morning. There's no connection between this and the endorsement decision at all. Now, when it comes to the appearance of conflict, Bezos says, I am not an ideal owner of the Post. Every day, somewhere, some executive of Amazon or Blue Origin or somebody is meeting with a government person. I once wrote that the Post is a complexifier for me. It is, but it also turns out I'm a complexifier for the Post. Now, you can see my wealth and business as a bulwark against intimidation, or you can see them as a web of conflicting interests. Only my own principles can tip the balance from one to the other. I assure you that my views here are, in fact, principled. I believe my track record as the owner backs this up. You're, of course, free to make your own determination. But I challenge you to find one instance where I've pushed the Post to help me personally. Now, lack of credibility isn't unique here. Our other newspapers have the same issues. It's a problem not only for the media, but also for the nation. Many people are turning to off-the-cuff podcasts, inaccurate social media, unverified news sources, which can quickly spread misinfo. Now, we are increasingly talking only to a certain elite, and we are talking to ourselves. It wasn't this way in the 90s. They had 80% household penetration in DC. Now, while I do not and will not push my personal interest, I will also not allow this newspaper to stay on autopilot and fade into irrelevance, not without a fight. It's too important. And so we have to exercise some new muscles. None of this will be easy, but I'm grateful to be a part of this endeavor as we work to get to the truth. All right. So people are furious about this over there. They can't stand it. Wait a minute. Let's see what some of these, those are all just 20,000 comments. Let's see which ones are the most liked comments over here and see how people are reacting at the Washington Post. Sorry, that excuse doesn't wash. This is plain cowardice. You promised that you wouldn't interfere. It's a dereliction of duty to block a planned endorsement. And you are actually a danger to the country, Jeff Bezos. Danger to the country, as you can see. I don't think billionaires know what's best for the country. Putting your thumb on the scale has always been an independent editorial board decision. And they're furious. You spiked an article critical of Trump. You have destroyed the reputation of this newspaper forever. Very upset about it. I think he's absolutely right. Obviously, Bezos is clearly right. The Washington Post has been floundering since he really bought it. And he bought it to try to gain influence, obviously. And it's not working. He's seeing Elon, and the Elon model is working. Elon is really changing the conversation and having a massive impact in the election. And the media is now being laughed at. But the New York Times is also reporting this, said that the Harris fascism stuff is also failing. So the old techniques and tactics just aren't working anymore because, again, they've wrecked their credibility. Nobody trusts them anymore. So who cares what they say? They're just like some other off-the-cuff podcaster. They don't have the credibility of a news agency. The leading super PAC is raising concerns that Kamala is focusing too narrowly on Trump's character and warning that the fascist stuff isn't making any sense. Okay, we've known the dude for 50 plus years in America. So people aren't freaked that he's going to turn into Hitler or something. People are more freaked about open borders and a wrecked economy and a deflating dollar, or an inflating dollar, rather. Deflating in terms of value. What we're talking here is the media trying to figure out what to do about this and tanking their credibility even further is Nicole Wallace. Here's what she sounds like over on NBC, MSNBC. She's doing the same shtick that Mika Brzezinski did, saying that they're killing us. They're killing the women.
Again, everybody, don't sleep on the men. They heard from Michelle Obama this weekend. It's 5 o'clock in New York in 2016. She told us to go high when they go low. In 2020, she effectively appealed to our better angels. And just a few months ago, she told the pro-democracy Americans among us to, quote, do something. Now, With just over 1 week until Election Day, former First Lady Michelle Obama isn't messing around anymore. Because with women's reproductive health care and freedoms hanging in the balance next Tuesday, the stakes literally are life and death for every woman in America.
Life and death.
It's not hyperbole. It's not an exaggeration. It's what happens next week.
It's not hyperbole, okay? This is not an exaggeration, okay, ladies? You're going to die if you don't vote for Kamala Harris. It's not an exaggeration. It's not hyperbole.
Very first appearance on the campaign trail since her speech at the Democratic National Convention, Michelle Obama in Kalamazoo, Michigan, made a very specific and artful and powerful plea to men, especially men, who do not feel like the assault on women's reproductive rights affects them at all.
They're just having a real tough time over there in the media. They're a joke, which is why they have to send little hacks out like Nico Grant to go and try to beat people into submission and go after their livelihood, because that's the only way they can win. You know what a good strategy would be for the Democrats? Govern the country well. Actually improve people's lives. Then people will vote for you. You don't have to go and try to eliminate people from the game field because your arguments and your team are failing at everything they try. All right, so we'll keep our eye on that.